Hermione Granger, Atticus Finch, Katniss Everdeen, Okonkwo, a supermarket trolley that believes in God. The dictionary definition of the word protagonist is that it is the leading character or one major character in a film, play, novel, etc., etc. Now, since I'm the idiot who wants to write and publish his first fiction novel, I gotta make sure that my novel, Atticus the Mighty, has at least one great protagonist that is leading the story. So that's our question for this week on the Writer's Block. How do you write a great protagonist? Hi, I'm Marcus, and I'm the idiot on the Writer's Block. So, for tips on how to write a great protagonist, we asked these experts. And this is what they said.
Oh, well, the great protagonists are flawed. That's the thing. So what are their flaws? And usually in the story, their flaws are what, stop the story progressing sometimes. Again, in a crime book, it's not the case necessarily. It's part of the book, but it's not necessarily. I mean, their flaws don't impede the action because it colours the action, but it doesn't necessarily stop it. So if you're a detective who likes to drink too much, occasionally it might get in the way of your crime solving, but usually it doesn't. Usually they're just going about it in a different way, I guess. But yeah, they definitely have to have flaws, I think.
And I also like protagonists that aren't too perfect and they're not annoying though at the same time, like with the decisions that they make. So I guess a few examples for me. One would be one I think that a lot of people are familiar with would be Katniss from The Hunger Games. She's a good protagonist that I love that series. And then one of my nostalgic books, my favorite book actually of all time is Anne of Green Gables by Ella Montgomery. I read that book all the time, and I just love Anne as a character. It's just a very nostalgic character for me to read from. And an author I recently discovered, her name's Akemi Dawn Bowman, and I've read two of her books, Starfish and Harley in the Sky, and both of the main characters, I feel like she does a really good job with making me be able to identify with them and really care about what's going on with their storyline.
Yeah, I think a great protagonist needs nuance. I think it needs complexity. They need to be not black and white. They need to be, a complex character, very different shades of the spectrum.
The first tip for writing a great protagonist would be character agency. This is when a protagonist makes decisions that move the plot. Characters that lack agency, the plot is moving the character. So you see the character is like, I could go this way or this way, and then the plot changes based on whatever that action is. The characters that lack agency, in my opinion, are so boring to read, so you really want your characters to make active decisions that impact the plot. If other characters are making decisions for them, if the events of the story or, I don't know, the setting or whatever makes decisions for them, it's kind of boring to read. So again, character agency.
To write a good protagonist, you really do have to see things, from their point of view. It helps if the protagonist's goal is one that the writer themselves can really, really relate to. Because you have to be invested in the character's goal, whatever that is. And if you're invested in that goal, then it's going to come across, and the reader is going to believe the protagonist is invested in the goal. The goal possibly becomes more interesting if it is something that the protagonist can live without, because the protagonist continually choosing to pursue their goal convinces the reader, or should convince the reader, of how much they want it. And a good protagonist is given the opportunity to abandon their goal So before the point of no return, a good protagonist is given the opportunity to abandon their goal, take the easy way out. When the protagonist doesn't, that further validates the goal, it further validates the protagonist. And it then sort of lays the groundwork for later moments when the protagonist continues to pursue their goal even when things get hard.
I like having a main character to root for, and again, it doesn't have to be a likable character. It just has to be something that they want done that you can relate to. So, if this person is an absolutely terrible person, but they're like fighting for world peace or something, you still kind of want them to win, even though they're not a good person. So you have that connection, you have that, draw to them. You want to see if they succeed, even if it is, potentially, I want to see these people fail. Like, you still want to see what happens.
Number 2 is goals and drive. So what does your character want at the start of the book? They should want something. You can't just have them being happy-go-lucky. If they're fine and they're happy, then why would they choose to proceed with the plot? There has to be something missing that they want to achieve, they hope to do, whatever. So think about what drives them as a character. Then what's in the way of them getting what they want? So what is that conflict? And then do their desires and goals change by the end of the book? A lot of times protagonists that have a strong character arc, they learn something in the middle of the book, and then maybe what they want at the story isn't what they want at the end of the story. I don't know if I said that right. What they want at the beginning of the story isn't what they want at the end. It kind of morphs and changes a little bit.
I like to see a protagonist that has a lot of character growth throughout the book, or at least in some way they've changed by the end, learned something, done something, or either that, or just like there's something about them that I can identify with, or something that makes me care about them as a character, since for the most part, usually that's the person that you're in their head or you're following for most of the time.
And be empathetic, I think. Either to other people, or like you should feel empathy for them. They should be able to create, inspire empathy in them, but they should also be able to respond to other people quite well. Of course, I really hate saying these things sometimes, because my writing mantra is the first rule of writing is show not tell. The second rule of writing is there aren't any rules. Okay, so everything I'm saying is just like, of course you can subvert that, refute that, you can do whatever you like. But for me, those are the things that generally you might need, and then or a subversion of any of those three things.
Yeah, I love it when people say they have to be likable, because I disagree 100%. I don't think your protagonist has to be likable at all. I really enjoy it whenever, I'm like, I really don't want this person to win, but I do. There's that cool, back and forth in your own mind that's created by the writer. But for a good protagonist, I would go with he or she has to be, very dynamic and very moving. I don't think your character should be the same person at this page 1 to the end. I don't think they should be the same person. They should have learned something. Otherwise, what's the point of the story? There's got to be something that has gone down, and they have to have changed in some way. That's what draws us to story.
Give them character that's unique in a way, even though they're all going to be generic character. I mean, a good example of this, I suppose, is the Jack Reacher books. And I admit I've only read a few, but your man Lee, he has gone on record saying that how he created the books was that he didn't see enough Clint Eastwood films, and he thought, well, what's the character? It's a man kind of a no-name, drifts into town, gets the job done, and moves on. And he says, that was his kind of inspiration for the Jack Reacher books. A bit taller, I believe, than Tom Cruise, but give him attitude. Pick an attitude for him. So he's got a flaw. He's got an attitude. How does he look at things? Is he laid back? Is he witty? Look at the Spencer books. Robert B. Parker. His character is funny. He's a witty man. He's tough, but he's witty. So that's an attitude, in a way. When presented with a problem, a tough guy coming up, and he'll respond with a joke, which again probably goes back to Raymond Chandler and Philip Marlowe, very much the same thing. So give them an attitude. It's a really easy way of saying, well, what's the character? Well, their attitude. And then their dialogue. You know, people say people's characters should have a dialogue, you could take it out and people would recognise it as that character. I think that's a bit of baloney, because it's really hard to take a bit of dialogue. But if you know the character's attitude, that dialogue works.
I think you need the character to be smart in some way, and I don't necessarily mean academically smart. You know, like people, that's another shortcut people use. Oh, they're a genius or something like that. I think a character can just be smart about anything. Can be smart about people. Can be smart about animals. Can be generally just good at something. Have something to offer in a sense. You know, and that might be hidden, but it comes out later. But have some kind of what we call sometimes when we're building character a superpower. You know what I mean? So have something special about them, some form of smarts.
Quirks and mannerisms. So to avoid a bland, two-dimensional protagonist, be sure to give your characters some unique mannerisms, some quirks. Do they bite their lip? Do they have a favorite curse? Are they superstitious? Are they free-spirited or short-tempered? Do they like poop jokes? Think of ways to individualize your characters, and this is going to be dependent on what is your age category and genre, who is your target audience, and what type of character that you want to write. And everyone should be different and unique.
To look at how the character sounds, who they are, the layers behind everything they do, you know, because everyone has 700 different layers to them. You know, it's like the onion metaphor. There's always something underneath, you know, as you're peeling back the layers. And so they might speak a certain way because they grew up a certain, you know, in a certain place. You know, there's different, I love working in publishing because I get to talk to people from everywhere, obviously. But, you know, I love all of a sudden, like, I'll say something and people have no idea what I'm talking about because they don't know what that slang is. Because I'm from St. Louis, I'm from the Midwest, you know. I don't talk the way people do on the East Coast, even where most of publishing is located. And so I'll say, you know, something like, you know, for some reason, cattywampus is the only thing that's coming to mind. And I'm like, it means diagonal, guys. That's all it means. It's a Southern word. Like, it just means that something's at a diagonal. And, you know, there's phrases, you know, or quotes that my family has personally. You know, my father, and I'm going to talk about him a lot apparently today. One of his favorite quotes is, and I don't know if he found this somewhere, if he made it up, is, if you can't dazzle them with brilliance, baffle them with bullshit. And I think like that just like shapes the personality of myself and my brothers. Like, we're just all like, you know, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to run with it and just see what happens. And so, you know, every person has these different layers. Every person has these different things they bring to the table. You know, I'm from a dairy farm. I look at animals in a very different way than other people do. You know, I look at the whole stinking world in a very different way than a lot of people. You know, I live in the city now, but I obviously did not growing up. And so, you know, again, just all these different layers to these people. And it doesn't take much to find that, you know, that core thing. You know, you just eventually you work your way in and you break down that character as much as you can. You peel back all those layers, and you, the writer, know those things going in. And when you know those things, you don't have to spell them out on paper. You can just, you know them and they shine through. You know, you can know that the character, you know, is from the southern states in the US and they say cattywampus instead of put it at a diagonal. You know, they say, you know, different things, and that just will come through naturally, or they hold certain values. You know, Farmtown America, there's a very specific set of values that is associated with that. And not everyone agrees with all of those values, but, you know, when you come from that area, those things are automatically going to be part of that character. And so knowing all of these things about your character, not spelling them out, but knowing them, I think that's what makes a really good protagonist.
There you have it. Great tips from the experts. You can check the description below to find links to their work. But what did you think about their recommendations? Did you agree or disagree with their tips on how to write a great protagonist? Do you have some ideas of your own that you would like to share with us? Or maybe perhaps you'd just like to shout out some of your favorite protagonists from various works of fiction that you like. Whatever it is, please put it in the comments below. And don't forget to hit the like button and to subscribe to this channel to get great tips on how to write and publish your first fiction novel. I'm Mark Isako. I'll see you next time.